Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. This week's episode is a replay from the Thriving Through the Holidays Summit. Hi, welcome to another episode of Thriving Through the Holidays. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today, I have my dear friend, Janet Bentley. Let me tell you a little bit about Janet. She was raised in Southern California and currently lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, where she created and manages Courageous Survivors. Her driving passion is prevention of child sexual abuse and to be a lifeline to survivors. Her memoir, Don't Expect Me to Cry, Refusing to Let Childhood Sexual Abuse Steal My Life, was published in October 2018 and has received numerous literary accolades. She's been interviewed on several podcasts and has a powerful message to share. Janet is a member of RAIN's Speaker Bureau, and RAIN stands for Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. She's a facilitator of Darkness to Light Stewards of Children, child sexual abuse prevention training, and an ambassador for the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. So, Janet, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Well, it's so good to have you back. We've done a few other things together before, so I absolutely am thrilled to have you join me for this.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. So thank you so much. It's an important.
We're really gonna dive in today and talk on this session about how to deal with those holiday triggers. 2020. Who knows what the holiday season's going to look like this year, and so with all that uncertainty and all of the angst that already goes along with the holiday season, this I feel is like a very crucial topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess let's just dive in. I mean, what do we do, Janet? We've got all this craziness coming up, or maybe not. I mean, how do we get through it?
Well, gosh, so I have really, this is something that I have really been working on big time for the last few years. For me, and for a lot of people, as you know, the holidays are a time, regardless of COVID times, which, like you say, does add an extra layer.
Right.
Holidays themselves can be such a trigger for anybody with complex PTSD, any kind of trauma, because a lot of times, though, the holidays are when those things got worse. Like I speak for myself, and I know for me, even though there was always dysfunction and abuse and trauma happening in my life, when there would be holidays, the drinking would get worse, the people that would be hanging around our house would get worse. And so, it was a lot that happened at that time of the year. So now as an adult, when these times of the year happen, even though, my intelligent brain knows that, I'm safe now, I'm surrounded by supportive people, my nervous system doesn't always know that. And those trauma responses are instantaneous sometimes, and they can spiral me into some pretty bad shame attacks and some pretty dark places. So the biggest thing that I'm learning that counters not only the triggers around the holidays, but anytime I get triggers, is self-compassion. And it's something that always counters that shame. If I can, somehow be able to do some positive self-talk and think of myself as that little girl, that inner child, that innocence, and treat her with compassion for the reasons why she, her nervous system gets so traumatized during these things.
Right.
Then that always helps me. I mean, I even write letters. I mean, just this last week, I had a birthday, and birthdays are very, very difficult for me. It's hard to explain to someone that doesn't understand it, but I have a real shame existence bind. For so many years, I wished I wasn't born. I didn't feel worthy to be alive. And so, even though I'm not in that place anymore, that still comes up every birthday. And so I wrote a letter to myself, to my inner child, and poured my heart out to her. And that was one tool I used, which was a type of self-compassion. I also think, especially around the holidays where, regardless of whether people are going to be out and about as much necessarily because of COVID, there's still so much pressure to, have it be perfect. You want it to be perfect, and you want to buy the perfect gift for people, and you want to, all the things and the commitments that happen that come up. And I think that another thing that I've learned is it's all about self-care, really. These are all tools of self-care. But boundaries are huge. Being able to realize that I can say no, and it's so funny how we can forget that we are allowed to say no, where we think we have to do something or we're expected, and no is a complete sentence in this
I
regard.
was just going to say, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah. So, and my history of, trauma made me into a huge people pleaser for so long that saying no and setting boundaries for myself is very difficult because I don't want anybody to be mad at me,
Right.
So, I think that's important too.
So many of us, yes.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this, coming up to this discussion and, about the triggers and the tools that I use and stuff. And I think another thing that helps me a lot is being prepared as much as you can. Sometimes they blindside you and you just have to do the best you can in the moment. But a lot of times, because holidays can be times of some very traumatic events. For me, New Year's Eve is huge. It was a horrific time for me. And it is something, it's an anniversary. And so being prepared ahead of time, putting safety measures in place ahead of time, being around safe people, being around people where you can be yourself, and bail if you need to, like for instance, last year, my therapist was, we were talking about it and what I was going to do. And the years before, what I had been doing was just making, like the year before, I went to the movie theater and I was in the movie theater when it hit midnight. And after midnight, then I went home, it was all done. And that was a good thing. I mean, it got me through it and I was safe. But then this last year, it was like, well, I wonder what would happen what it would look like if I tried to nurture myself through something different to show that inner child that I've got her back and that, we don't have to always run from it. We don't always have to hide. So I planned a game night with some safe friends and told them ahead of time, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if I'm going to have to, if I'll get overwhelmed and have to leave, but just, they knew ahead of time. And it kind of takes that anxiety away from it, I think, so.
It's good to have that support system that you've got of safe people. A lot of us don't have that yet, or we're still trying to figure out what that looks like. So it's having that is even if it's just one person to start out with.
Exactly.
With these upcoming dinners and parties and all the stuff that we have to go to, you need somebody in your corner when Uncle Bob shows up, or whatever, the crazy aunt, or the whatever. You've got to have that one person who's in your corner, and
right. And you're so right. It even if it's just one person, and I would say for the first time ever, allowed myself, it's been about 3 years ago now, to have a safe person. I didn't have, I had people that wanted to be friends. I had acquaintances, but I had so many walls up. I never let anybody close to me. I was way too scared to trust anybody. And I had to create this support group from nothing. And I think that I've been very fortunate. I feel very blessed that I have the ability to go to certain recovery things that I'm able to go to. Not everybody has that, thanks to our crazy medical insurance system. Which I don't want to get started on that, but I've been. But there are groups, there are places that you can reach out and find that person, and then that person can turn into another person maybe, or a safe group, or but you have to start. I was petrified to be vulnerable enough to allow somebody to put myself out there to be a friend to someone.
Right. Yeah, when I lost my best friend 2012, I put all those walls up too. I was same thing. And I really still don't have a very close friend. I have my daughters, but I don't have, that one person that I can go to and talk to about anything, that one female person.
Right. Right.
Even with my daughters, there's things I would never talk to them about.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and I miss that. I really do. But I don't know. I just haven't gone out to try and find one yet. So I guess now that we're talking about it, it's something I need to do. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to ponder that one.
Yeah, it's scary,
It is scary because I don't want to get so close to another friend and then they're taken away from me.
Right.
But I was able to do it with, after Mark died, I now have an absolutely wonderful boyfriend. It feels so weird calling him a boyfriend at almost 50 years old. But, but I was able to, do it that way. I think, I don't know. I don't know why I haven't gone out with the friends, but that's a whole different topic. Something that you said I really like was the idea of creating like a new tradition, basically, for New Year's Eve, instead of going out with the parties and whatever, you go to the movie theaters, or like you had the game night. And I think that is absolutely phenomenal. If you really cannot be around your family, they're not supportive, whatever. I love the idea of starting your own traditions.
Yeah. This is I don't know how to describe this so much as my family. I'm the oldest of 8, and my sisters are still alive. Most of my brothers are gone. I have one brother still living, and my mom and dad are gone. And from addiction and from the dysfunction that happened, the suicides and all that stuff. And I am actually, since I wrote my book, I only have one sister that I'm in contact with, because they, the rest of them have their own, they're a lot younger than me. They had a different childhood, and they can't seem to reconcile, what I'm talking about, which happened to me versus what happened to me. So, I've accepted that. It was very sad at first, but I've accepted that. And it sounds weird to say this, but what I thought of when you were saying that is I actually think it's a bit of a blessing right now. I honestly don't know what I would do if I had to deal with families and holidays, like so many have to do that. Like you're just mentioning, I hear some of my friends talk about it, and I'm like, I'm just so glad I don't have to deal with that on top of everything else, Not everybody has that luxury, of course, and that's where boundaries have to come in, and, but like you say, new traditions too,
Absolutely, new traditions. You start new things with your family, with your husband, your partner, your kids. You don't have to be around family, the other family, A few years ago, I traveled back west and went to a family reunion. It was the first one I'd been to in 20, 30 years. And it's the first time I've seen a lot of those people since I was a teenager. And I can guarantee you I will never go back to another one, it wasn't bad. It was just all the emotions and triggers and stuff that were brought back up for me. Not worth it. I went back to celebrate my grandma's 100th birthday. Grandma's gone now. And so that's that. I don't need to be around them anymore.
Right. Exactly.
And,
once we can get to that place, and stop the feeling that we owe everything to everybody else, and take care of ourselves, and realize, we can say no. We don't have to be around people that aren't going to support us and be good for us,
Yeah. So new traditions, saying no, setting boundaries, creating a plan. What else?
And another thing that I do, because as good as some of these things sound, sometimes, like I said, I get blindsided. I can't, I don't know that it's even going to happen
when they're going to hit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one thing I've created in therapy is, it's basically a fire drill when I get into one of those shame places, which is what happens to me when I do get triggered. I get into I'm worthless and I shouldn't be here, and it'd be better if I wasn't here, and I could make all the pain go away. All that it just spirals and spirals. So I have made a list, and it's divided into 2 parts, and there are warning signs. They're my own warning signs, which, I can tell maybe that I might be slipping into one, wanting to isolate, wanting to sleep for a week, wanting to medicate, whatever it might be at the time. Or just instantly feeling that deep, deep sadness and worthlessness. And then the second part is we call it a fire drill. And it's basically things that I go to when I can't think straight, because I'm in one of those shame places. And I've grown, it's grown as I've been through these things. And like, for instance, for me, one of the things is to call somebody, you know, out of my own head, check my thinking. That's not always possible if you don't have a safe person, or if you're just not in a place where you actually, sometimes I can't make myself call someone. Go for a walk, you know, get out of the house, you know, get into a different situation. Remembering it's temporary, checking, I don't know if you've heard of the term HALT, which is an acronym for hungry, angry, tired, or lonely and tired. And if you're any of those things, that taking care of those individual things can help. You know, just whatever works for you to pull you out of that moment. And I have it laminated and I can pull it out, you know, and I'm not always perfect at it, and that's okay. But it's another tool, basically.
I love it. I love it. These are some great tools to not only get us through the holidays, but just get us through every day, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with the craziness that's coming up.
Yeah. And like I said, I think another thing is I can't, for so long, I couldn't get near self-compassion. I could not even get near it. I didn't understand it. I had hated myself for so long. And the thing that's allowed me to begin to build on that is by doing the inner child work, you know, looking at a picture of myself as a little girl and, you know, realizing that, you know, she's scared and she's hurt. And so what that's allowed me to do is to, I'm now actually getting more compassion for another part of me, which is that rebel part, which is like, you know, F everything and kill yourself, because that's the only way you're going to feel better. But that part of me kept me safe.
Yeah.
That part of me, you know, those thoughts, those
protected the little girl.
So, and I'm learning also that the healthier I get, the more healing I do, and the more I get towards self-compassion, those voices get louder. Those old coping strategies and methods are like fighting for their lives, and they don't want me healthy. It's too risky, it's too scary. And so I was actually in therapy this week, and my therapist said, you know, what if when it was basically a realization of using those times to, like, when those coping strategies are trying to take over, when they're trying to throw me into a shame spiral and tell me I'm worthless and tell me I don't need to be here, that's because I'm actually doing pretty damn good. That's because I am doing the work and I'm getting healthy. So I am going to try to remind myself when those times happen to flip that message. Like, you know, okay, well, I must be getting pretty good because I feel pretty shitty right now, you know? And it's a weird kind of thing.
No, but it works. It works. And only those of us who've been through trauma would understand.
Exactly.
Because it does. It works. It's like, oh, okay, I'm having a bad day. I'm doing something right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
So I'm kind of doing that and just giving myself, trying to just, you know, giving myself permission to have those triggers, to have those emotions that come with those triggers, because I have some pretty deep wounds, and you know, they are there, and I'm definitely healing them. The scars are there, but you know, and they're getting better. But you know, I came by those pretty honestly. And So again, that's more self-compassion, which I love that.
Sorry.
More acceptance that there's valid reasons for the emotions and the feelings that I have.
Yeah.
And it kind of counters that pattern of mine, which is to try to be perfect and not show my emotions and not be vulnerable and, try to hide it all, which doesn't, it just makes it worse.
Yeah. This has been really good. Thank you so much, Janet, for coming on and helping us, giving us some of these tips and these ideas. I mean, you've got me thinking about some stuff now. I'm ready to get out. I think it's time. 8 years is long enough. It's time to go find me a friend.
Yeah.
So,
most people, our fears of that, the fear that keeps us from doing that. When we actually walk through that fear, we get so much comfort.
I know.
We get so much from that. So.
Yeah. And then you look back and you're like, what was I so afraid of?
No. Exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody who is listening, who is joining us for this amazing summit. There's a lot of amazing speakers. I know Janet's first in line, so there's a lot of good stuff coming up for you. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thanks.